Good morning. Yes, I'd like to take you with me into that situation because, you see, the church council and the church wardens already regarded me as being, this crazy new vicar they got who wanted to give money away instead of trying to get money in. And in the meantime, at this particular point, I'd met somebody out in the town, a man that I'd got to know over the last couple of months since I'd been in the parish. And, in my usual evangelistic way, I said to him, why don't you come to the services in our church? Why don't we ever see you there? And he looked at me and he said, I've always come to the church. I'm there quite regularly. I said, what do you mean I never see you? Oh, he said, I come to every jumble city you ever hold. It was like a warning bell coming from God, you see, because I went back at once in the next church council meeting. I said, I'm sorry, I said, but God has told me we've got to stop this nonsense of selling rubbish. We've got to stop the nonsense of selling rubbish. We've really got to trust him and not go for this type of effort to raise money in this way. In fact, it caused great distress in the parish because the jumble sales, well, they were almost part of the social life of the parish. And the people would gather with great enthusiasm. And at the end of the day, they can say to me, we've made £80. And I think, £80? What's £80 with all the expenses that we've got? Or we've had a sale of work and we've raised £500. I said, again, it's nothing, compared with what we need in this parish. And this was the point where we'd made a decision that we would have no more jumble sales, no more sales of work. We would stop it right down to the ground. No more fates. I said, you want to go out and support other charities in doing it, that's fine. But we're not accepting any of this money. If you want to put on a sale of work, if you want to put on a fete, great. We'll do it, but we'll do it for a charity. All the monies we make will go towards this charity, and it won't be, in fact, for the church. And all jumble sales, well, they stop instantly. You can imagine I'm glad I had freehold at that time, and then people who couldn't say, well, let's try and get rid of this vicar, because I think many of them would have been thinking in that way. And now suddenly I had this debt, this coming up debt of about £30,000, or in our own thinking at the present day, it is like having an income of the parish of about £40,000, £50,000, and suddenly an expenditure of probably about £300,000 to do the work. And I'd gone to see this bank manager. I sat on the table opposite him, and I've always had great respect for these bank managers. I remember as a young priest, I was a curate, and I went to see my bank manager then. I sat down opposite him in a very similar office. And I said, I wanted to raise a certain sum of money for myself. And he said, what do you want it for? I said, I want to buy a car. And he looked at me and he said, if you take on this debt with your present income, it will cripple you as a person. You will just not have sufficient to satisfy your needs. And he said, I can tell you now, he said, that when debt comes in through the door, love goes out the window, because the struggle you'll have just to pay for this thing is going to be too great. So his advice then had been good. Now, of course, later, having become an incumbent, my income had risen, and I now did have a car. But remember that advice he gave me as a young man, and it was proper and true advice. And now I was sitting opposite another bank manager in Abergavenny, and I said, this is the problem. We need a raise, and I'm talking modern day money, not then. Then it was 30,000. It was almost as if the day I was to go before the bank manager and say, I need to raise £300,000 to pay for what is needed. We said, let me see your accounts. So I brought him his accounts and I laid them out in front of me. And he said, you're just about breaking even, aren't you? I said, yes. We had about 4,500 to 5,000 income, and we were spending about 4,500 to 5,000, just equal. And you want to raise another 30,000? I said, yes. He said, what security can you give me for raising this money? Because he said, the bank, needs security. I thought, oh yeah, I expect it does. So I took a deep breath. See, I knew that this bank manager was a Christian. In fact, he was part of a local apostolic church. And I knew them, and I had association with them. And I had associated with him socially and on a spiritual level, as well as now seeing him as my bank manager. So I took this deep breath, and I said, my security is Elyon. Elyon. My security is Elyon. And I can see him now sitting the other side of the desk. And he said, are you sure you know the name? Has God given you the name? And I went back to that car park outside of St. Mellons, and I brought it back into my mind. I said, yes, God has given me the name, Elyon. For this parish, he said, not for you, just for yourself. No, I said, God's given me the name for this parish. Well, he said, it's the strangest security I've ever put down, but I'm going to give it to you. Amen.